I come away better, no question
Yeah.
about it. I'd love to start kind of at where you came from, how you got started, where did you grow up? Give us a little bit of your background.
So I grew up in a really small town in Nebraska. My mom and dad and my brother and his family still live there. My sister lives in Florida. And, growing up, I had a very, a very nice childhood. So like, if you look at it, we were in a town of 800 people. I graduated with 24 kids in my class. And both of my parents are fortunately still with us and a huge part of my life. So I'm very thankful for both of them, close with both of my siblings. And then when I went to college, I ended up in Springfield, Missouri. I got an academic scholarship here. So about 6.5, 7 hours from where my family is, and got a degree in marketing and quantitative analysis, which is a fancy way of saying statistics. So went to work for Bass Pro Shops. The corporate office is in Springfield, Missouri, and very quickly found that I'm not really made to sit in a cubicle all day.
Okay.
I was the kid in class that was always in trouble for talking and, all those other good things. And so bounced around a little bit. I worked for a business brokerage for a while. I owned a business. I ran a hair salon, never hair, but ran a hair salon. My first opportunity to kind of delve into some leadership. And when I had my first child, decided to stay at home.
Okay.
About that time, my ex-husband and I were still married then. And we were looking at building an investment portfolio. And he was like, Jen, I really think that you'd be good at real estate. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like I was picturing, I don't know what I was picturing, but a lot of open houses, I think is what I was picturing.
Okay.
And got into it, didn't start at Keller Williams. I was at a Berkshire Hathaway company. I was there for 5 years. And then Dan Holt, who's my business partner, recruited me to be his buyer's agent. And when I came over, Dan was really the first person that I met that looked at the buyer agent role as not a less than role. So he was looking, if you think about it, you have two buckets of people on your team, right? You've got empire builders and empire protectors. So your admin, right, our operations people, those are your empire protectors. Your CPA is an empire protector. And then if you look at a buyer's agent, how Dan looked at it was really an empire builder. And so we sat down and drew out a business plan. And he was the first person that really showed me how to build that roadmap, right? How many calls I needed to make, how many contacts, how many appointments, all of those things. And before coming over to Keller Williams, my biggest year, I sold 16 houses.
Okay.
First year at KW, with the training and the systems and the models and Dan's guidance, I closed 49 buy sides.
Wow.
And we looked up and I was like, that was really fun. That was really fun. I really love buyers. And he said, can you do it again? Can we grow? What would we need to take off of you? And the conversation became really every year, how do I narrow that 20%, right? So if we look at the 80-20 rule, where 80% of our income or results is going to come from 20% of our activities, what could I give up? And so every year we made a hire and we basically looked at the buy side, just like you would look at it if you were a rainmaker. So how could we run an MREA business, like a team within a team? And so I hired an admin and jumped up to 72 closed buy sides, and then looked at, I need some help with lead generation. And so the next year, we added an ISA, an inside sales agent, to help me on the nurtures with the buyers. And I added a MAPS coach, and I went from 72 closed units to 110. And so when I say that, I want to just, for those that are not new agents or those that are new agents, that was pre-dot-loop or DocuSign. So if you think about, all of the addendums that get signed and sellers disclosures and all of the fun stuff that happens, all of that was in person. But by that time, we were developing the systems and models to really have a strong foundational business. So I was only showing 2 or 3 properties before a buyer would write an offer, right? We had lots of inventory then. So it was fun times.
Yep.
And looked up, and I was really only showing properties 2 nights a week and 1 day on the weekend. So it didn't mean I didn't work those other times. I got to be home though. And I had 2 little kids, and Dan said, now what? Right. We want to still grow.
Sure.
And it was my first realization of I'm the lid on this side of the business. I didn't want to hire another buyer's agent. I don't necessarily always play well with others. So, I liked running it. And at that point, we met, Dan and I and his MAPS coach and my MAPS coach, we all met, and we were like, we've heard of this showing agent model, right? We've heard people have done this, yet no one was really doing it successfully, or it didn't really last more than a year. And so we really drew out what will eventually come out in MREA 2 of what does the showing agent model look like. And so that year, I think that was 2016, I added 1 showing agent in January. And then by June, I was ready for the second one.
Gotcha.
And so we closed 182 buy sides. We were 50% of the production for our team. And so the showing agents showed property. I filled their, I helped fill their pipeline. Our ISA filled their pipeline. I handled, strategy sessions. Some people call them buyer consults. I handled negotiations and really kind of getting us to close.
Okay.
And we looked up, and our customer service was pretty rocky that year.
Okay.
When you
tell me more about that. What do you mean by rocky?
As you grow and as you do something that's disruptive, it causes chaos in your systems. It breaks the system. And I think that's many times why our agents, as they break a system, they almost retreat to a comfort zone of a certain production level, because it's really uncomfortable when you break a system. You disappoint people when you break a system. And so we looked up and we were like, 182 closings. That's awesome on the buy side. And we had 35 fall through that year. So when I come into something that's mindset, I never want to just give the highlight reel, because there were some challenges during that time. 35 closed units is a great year, right? And so we had 35 people that we had shown properties to, that we had put under contract, that we had gotten to the inspection period, and it fell apart. And so we were like, what are we missing? And that's one of the things that we really dove into over the next 3 years. And so I added an executive assistant, and we tweaked our systems. And we got up to, I think we closed 225-ish units 3 years in a row. And then 2019, Dan came to me and said, hey, would you like to buy into the business? He was the operating partner in our market center, wanted to take some additional opportunities. And he was like, I need somebody to lead the team. And so we valued the business. I bought in, and then learned how to lead our team. And so 2019 was a year of learning. I had never really had to do a P&L before. I never had really had to dive into our lead generation systems, lead flow, lead follow-up, the listing side. And so I made a switch in MAPS coaches, and got an executive coach that could help me learn kind of this massive, because we were closing 425 units at that point.
Okay.
And we were about 25% profit margin. Okay. And Dan was like, I want you to can you get us to 40%, right? Fresh eyes on this. I've built it. I built it as I was running, right? Like fixing the airplane while you're flying it. And so my coach and I unpacked it, and we went really department by department. I learned how to take listings. I developed a listing presentation. because Dan had always been our listing agent. You know,
Right.
I would I think the year I closed 110, Dan took 272 listings. So it's not like we didn't have a strong listing department. However, our listing department was based on Dan.
Sure.
And so we went through it. I learned how to take listings. I went on appointments. You know, we were figuring out conversion rates and all those things. And that was probably my most challenging year. I was very uncomfortable in a new role, right?
Okay.
And I was attempting to come in and lead people that Dan had hired, and that's always an interesting kind of adjustment. So by 2020, we were clicking along and still hadn't broken that 500 unit mark, right? We were like
Gotcha.
right up there, trying to get there. And 2020 was our year. And you know, COVID was awful and we lost people that we care about. And so I'm always hesitant to say that it was a good year. It was a good year for business. Personally, I know that so many people had challenges.
Oh, yeah.
And closed 538. I mean, just blew it out of the water.
Wow.
And some of that was the market. Some of that was we really had developed the systems to be efficient. And then 2021, same numbers, 2022, same numbers.
Right.
But a year ago, I got the call from Sajid Patel, who's the COO for Keller Williams International. And he said, hey, you know, have you ever thought about being the vice president of MAPS coaching? It's like, no.
Tell me, were you expecting that phone call?
No, Sajid and I knew each other because I was by that point a MAPS coach, yet we knew each other in the fashion of like, I had created a buyer agent 30, 60, 90 for MAPS, and he was the one that was developing the product. So he and I had some interaction. Most of it was like teasing back and forth of who was faster in a long race, right? And it's him, in case anyone wonder, he's faster. But it was out of the blue, and you look up and you think, this is what Gary means by you could be anywhere you want to be in 5 years. You know, you look from 2022 back 5 years to 2017, and I was a buyer's agent with 2 showing agents. I didn't own part of the company yet. And it's just interesting to see, you know, as you show up and do well in a role, the opportunities that start to open up.
Love that. Yeah. So the opportunities that you got were, although you didn't see it coming, you were actually working towards that, maybe without even knowing it.
Yeah, I think so. You know, Jay Papasan and I we did a webinar around the 10th anniversary of the One Thing. And it was interesting. There's a podcast, you know, that he and Gary do, and they were talking about the doors that open when you're on the path to mastery, right? Most people chase the shiny object. And so Jay was in the webinar, he was like, you know, Jen, I feel like this is you can speak to this, like the journey of mastery. He was like, when I met you, you were doing this and now you're here. And I said, I think what it is I have a very singular focus of where I'm at, right? I'm very present in the roles that I'm in and making the most of the opportunities. I do think that's why it was so surprising to me, because I was 100% focused on our team and developing our leaders. And when this came around, I laughed at Sajid and I was like, I don't, you know, I don't think so. But once something like that takes root in your mind, right? We talk about mindset and how powerful your brain is and all those things. It was all I could think of. And I thought, if this is my opportunity to impact and give back to this company that's been so amazing for me, I can't say anything other than yes. And so that started this journey. I think he reached out to me in March of last year. And then I, you know, was onboarded for Monica middle of June last year.
Wow. So it's been a year.
It's been a year.
Wow. So what's been your biggest challenge in trying to be in the MAPS world and still run the whole team? What's been your biggest challenge in the last year?
I really can't do both. You know, when we walked into it, I thought that I would be able to. And what I learned was I can give input at Whole Homes Group, right? I can still review our P&L. I can be a partner to Dan. He and I can have conversations. Yet what I learned is it's very challenging to run two big businesses at the same time. And so that has been I mean, if you look at mindset and ego, it's a challenge, right? To make that adjustment. And so we really looked up about 6 months ago. I was 6 months into the role, and MAPS was bigger than I thought it was, I guess, into it. You know, we're in a shift. Our agents are struggling. Our coaches, you know, need pouring into. And so I went to Dan and I said, is there, you know, what does this look like? And he was like, you know, Jen, I really would like to come back and run it. And so we've made a shift where now Dan is back really running the day to day. And I've taken that role of kind of co-owner and support, right? Like having the conversations, helping with some coaching, you know, being his thought partner on things. He's really, though, and it's interesting how it works, right? And it's like, I'm ready to do this. I've missed it. I miss production. You know, I want to lead through this shift. And he's come back in, and it's amazing to watch it. I will say though, like with mindset, it's an adjustment to say, I can't be all things to all people.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's I have to commend you, because I can see a lot of people would be determined that they could do both. And that would be probably disastrous in the long run.
It would be disastrous, or it would affect my relationship with my kids. And so, you know, I've got a 16-year-old and an 11-year-old, and it's the best thing I do, right? Being a mom is the absolute best thing that I do. And that's what was going to suffer. And, you know, if you look at the one thing and they talk about the glass balls, that's not I can't let that drop. I'm unwilling to let that drop. And so, you know, my coach always says to me, when your values are clear, decisions are easy. I wouldn't say easy. I would say the answer is easy. Actually implementing it and having the conversations are a little bit challenging.
Got it. So I know in the one thing they talk about balance, and the fact that there is no balanced life, and that things are like this. Is that what you're finding now with MAPS and your family and Whole Homes as you're doing? And if you find yourself here, you got to kind of bring it back in. Yeah.
Yes. Fortunately, I have, you know, I think most of us that are leaders or have surrounded ourselves with mentors or coaches, you have a check and balance system then built in. So, you know, I've got a group of people around me that aren't afraid to say, hey, you're, you know, it's too much over here. We need to make this adjustment. And so, you know, figuring that piece out has been interesting. It also, I think, I have more appreciation for what our agents are going through right now in the times that we are in, than I might otherwise have, right? I think essentially before I would have had this Pollyanna view of, well, sure, you can do this, right? You just have to double down, or you have to do these things. And I think this has made me realize, okay, there's a whole big picture that we need to be able to take a look at.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. Kind of shifting over to MAPS coaching, and what are the challenges, and what are the things that you're pouring into the agents that you guys, and you have hundreds of MAPS coaches that you're responsible for. What is the message, and what are you pouring into those agents? And the shift is different in every part of the country. I mean, here in New Hampshire, inventory is still really low. If homes are selling quickly, if you price them right. I was talking to an agent that I've worked with down in Indiana, and it's very, very different down there. They're really feeling the shift and the slow. What are you telling agents?
So it's interesting. I had a conversation with a regional director yesterday, and we were talking about agents. You know, there's this feeling of being very unsettled right now, right? Whether you're in this market of things are still moving so fast and there's not enough inventory, right? Or you're in the slowdown, what we're noticing is agents even some of our top agents don't have a great idea of what to do next, right? What's my next right step? And so what we're looking at is, what are the actual activities that you need to do? But more importantly, what are you willing to do? Because I think what happens is sometimes our agents wake up and they're like, oh, this is so hard. I have so many buyers, there's not enough inventory, or, oh, this is so hard. My inventory is not moving and I can't, buyers are stressed because of interest rates. And I think it's when we're looking at coaching, it's the consistency of the activities. It's I'm going to build out what I'm going to do every week. And regardless of what happens, I'm going to commit to these activities because we know that we're making that future deposit for ourselves, right? I look at it like it's like an accounts receivable.
Sure.
I'm doing the work that I'm going to get paid on later.
Okay.
And so I think that when we're talking with agents, it's number one, the consistency in activities, and it's every day. It's making that commitment and nothing is going to waver. And I know we hear that all the time, and, it's not fun or sexy or new, yet it is what I see. Those agents that are really thriving right now are the ones that are giving themselves over to the grind, right? They're just have adapted the process. The second thing is do you have a P&L? Do you know where your money is going? Do you know really, we'll see agents that are top agents, right? Their GCI is 700,000 and they may be 10% profitable. That's okay if we know it, because then we can make adjustments to get them from 10% to 15% to 20%. Many of our agents, though, what I'm finding is it's almost like they don't even want to look at it. They don't want to look at where money is flowing. And so getting, that book, Psychology of Money, money is a challenge. And so getting our coaches in a position to feel really confident in the financial piece, and then digging in with their clients to say, where are we really at? There's no embarrassment. There's so many agents that are struggling, really diving in and saying, where are our dollars going? How could we hold them more accountable? How do we line them up to those activities that we're going to be consistent with so that we actually are getting the biggest return on investment, not just for money, also with our time.
Got it. And then that's what I'm seeing with some of the agents that I coach is you talk about getting into the P&L and getting, I've been really pushing, this is mid-year. Where are we at? How are we doing? And it's almost like you got to rip the Band-Aid off to get them to dive in. It's almost like they don't want to see it, like you just said. But how do you can't know where you're going or how to fix anything if you have no idea where you are.
That's exactly right. If the analogy is the like a GPS, right? If I'm going to drive to you, the first question that my map asks me is, can I use your current location? Yep. Right. We've got to have the current location so that we can make those adjustments. And I think that's the thing, is just taking the stigma away of it's okay. It will be okay. Let us dive in. Let us help you. Let us coach you around these things and get you on this path.
Absolutely. And then that's it's just interesting how resistant some agents are. So my coaching people and everybody else be listening to this. This is so important. Because I think a lot of realtors they don't necessarily understand they're business owners legitimately.
They're in this reactive space, or they think it's going to take longer than it actually will to unpack those numbers. And it's not, it probably wouldn't take but a couple of hours, and then 15 to 30 minutes every week, really just to look at it. And I think that's the lesson in this is, we've just get started. One of the things that we talk about is imperfect action beats perfect procrastination every day of the week. And so just do something, right? Just start.
Absolutely. We got about 3 minutes left. Would you mind if I opened it up for a couple of questions?
I'd love it.
Okay. If anybody wants to throw their hand up, they got something for Jen, please do. Don't be shy. We got 42 of you on this call. She's a wealth of knowledge, and we don't get somebody like this in here every day. So please. You guys are all, I think they're scared of you, Jen. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Either that or they haven't had enough coffee. Could be both.
Could be both. Linda, thank you for putting your hand up. Appreciate you breaking the awkward silence. Fire away.
Okay, great. So my question was, as I'm coming off a beautiful year of my daughter graduating with all kinds of accolades from high school, I'm reflecting back and, you know, I think my business has suffered because I've been so involved in her life, and I've been saying that I don't regret any minute of it, because you can never get that time back. And, you know, I've been the classroom mom, I've been her, you know, youth coach, I've been her head coach. And when you touched on, you know, as you were speaking, I'm thinking, oh God, she probably never volunteered a day in her life, you know, kiddingly. And when you touched on the fact about the work-life balance, like, man, how did you do that? You know, for me, like, and I don't regret any second of it, but like, did you ever feel like you were missing things? So you said you had a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old, I think.
Yep,
So
I hope you 12.
you're where I was a couple years ago, and sounds like you had a lot of support. Well, meaning you hired and paid for a lot of support. So I'd love to hear a little more on that work-life
Sure.
balance.
You know, do I feel like I miss things when they were really little? Yeah, I do. You know, ahead of having that leverage in place, I do think that. Do I now miss anything? I don't. I have done a much better job over the last, I would say, since 2017, 2018, I have very strong boundaries around being at home and being with my kids. That doesn't mean I won't answer a call. And that doesn't mean that, you know, if somebody needed me, I wouldn't do something extra. What I found though, is when I put those boundaries in and I put the standards in for myself, what happened is I was actually more effective in the time I allowed. So I never, even when I was running production, I was always home when my kids got home. So if the bus got let out, you know, if the bus got home at 4:15, I was there. Did I volunteer? Every class party I did, right? I've never missed. I've maybe missed 2 games of any kind. Not my daughter's though, because she's in high school. So I've got limited time there. But what I found is I was wasting a lot of time those years that I didn't get home until 6:30 or 7 or 8 o'clock at night, because I had all of this time. And when you have all of this time, you procrastinate. So when I shortened it up, I still knew what my goals were. And so I didn't really sit around and check social media. I didn't really do, I was focused. And so one of the things that I think, you know, if I were looking at what I've done well, is I'm really where I'm at. If I'm at work, I'm 100% at work. And if I'm at home, I'm 100% at home. And so I don't really have any of the guilt of, oh, I should be working or I should be with my kids, because I'm really dialed in wherever I'm at.
I love that. And man, that 30 minutes goes so fast. It just, I was afraid that was going to happen. I want to thank you again for your time, Jen. This was great. I really appreciate it. And that last point, that's a takeaway for sure. Really, really appreciate it. So thank you again. And guys, everybody make it a great day. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jen.